534 illegal migrants came across the English Channel yesterday. That is a record for the year. That now puts our arrivals for 2024 at a record 6,265. Of course, the weather was very nice over the weekend. So if we have a clement summer, I know that's a long shot with Britain, but if it's a sunny, windless summer, God knows how many of these people.
It'll be basically a travelator from
be
Calais into Dover.
Thousands and thousands
Ridiculous.
will come across. Let's talk to the Executive Director of Migration Watch UK, Dr. Mike Jones. Hello, Mike.
Hi, good to be here.
Yeah, I mean, another day, another record number of people coming over, but 534 yesterday. We know very nice conditions, sunny, no wind, mill pond seas, so they came across. Now, we're coming into the summer now. We're going to get lots of days like yesterday. I mean, the mind boggles as to how many migrants will come across the channel, because they seem to be doing so right now with almost total impunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the weather has more of a role in the number of people crossing than the government does, which says much about the power of the nation state over this. And yeah, the numbers could increase exponentially over the summer period. You know, as you say, we're going to have clement weather conditions. And, you know, once those risks of crossing are reduced, you're just going to have more and more people attempting the journey. And it just adds to a situation that's completely out of control. This will impose costs on the taxpayer. And there is an obvious national security risk associated with illegal migration as well. But, you know, a bad situation is getting worse.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about just that, in fact, given how unstable we are internationally at the moment, everything going on in the Middle East. Of course, all the charities and hand-wringers would have us all believe that everyone coming over on boats are poor refugees in war-torn countries. It's all our fault. We probably started those wars somehow, so we must offer them some form of refuge. But every now and then we get figures coming out of who the cohorts are on these boats, squeaked out after the fact. But do we know, with the latest arrivals, who they are and who are organising these crossings?
Well, we don't really know who they are, because the vast majority destroy their documents. But we know, you know, from administrative data and peer-reviewed academic evidence in the Nordic countries that you do get large numbers of people from the Middle East and Sub-Saharan Africa committing certain crimes in a disproportional way. So, you know, what has happened overseas in Europe may well happen over here. So there's a definite security risk involved there. Because, you know, economics is fundamental to migration, you know, fiscal impacts, housing, public services, and all the rest of it. But you also change the composition of your population and the nature of it. And, you know, there's a whole sort of cultural issue and argument to be made there. And there are all sorts of long-term risks here to the UK if this situation is allowed to persist.
Indeed. Now, the Rwanda scheme, of course, is supposed to discourage migrants from coming across the channel. Doesn't seem to be working. However, you know, whether or not the Rwanda scheme actually gets off the ground, apparently the Prime Minister is negotiating with some other countries to get schemes going there. They are Armenia, Ivory Coast, Costa Rica and Botswana. Will any of these potential deals make any difference in terms of discouraging migrants coming across the channel? Because the spectre of the Rwanda scheme doesn't seem to have discouraged them one bit. In fact, the numbers are going up and up.
I think it was Albert Einstein who was once credited with saying the definition of, you know, insanity is trying the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And this is a, you know, a classic case study in this. The fact is, the Rwanda plan has been challenged in the courts. The High Court ruled in favour of the government. The Court of Appeal ruled against the government, and the Supreme Court upheld the decision of the Court of Appeal. So it was shot down in the courts. Now, if you think these alternative outsourcing schemes won't be challenged by the legal system, then, you're in for a rude awakening. It's for the birds. I mean, take Costa Rica. Costa Rica has a pretty good human rights record. But I mean, if you look at on the US State Department website, there are issues there with, prison overcrowding, pre-trial detention. There are issues with Botswana with freedom of speech and so on. I mean, obviously you have those issues in this country, but that doesn't matter to the human rights lawyers. The fact is there's enough there for them to make a case that these are unsafe countries. It's incompatible with the Human Rights Act, which by extension means it's incompatible with the European Convention of Human Rights. So what the Tory party needed to do was look at the domestic legal system, amend or abolish the Human Rights Act. You could replace it with something else, quite possibly, but they needed to set that groundwork and lay those foundations so that if you do want to negotiate a returns policy, whether it's to a third country like Rwanda or to a country of origin, then you can actually go ahead with that. But they didn't do that.